Back with us on the SportsMax Zone. Just before we get into business, we are correcting one of our stats from the zone updates. Ezra Mosley played 9 ODIs and took 7 ODI wickets. I think the bulletin said 1, so we apologize for that error. The West Indies head coach Phil Simmons has described the first test win over Bangladesh in Chattogram as a light in dark times for fans of Caribbean cricket. Simmons was speaking earlier on this Monday in the aftermath of the team's 3-wicket win in a match which ended Sunday morning Caribbean time. Before we hear more from Simmons, though, Ricardo Chambers takes us through the final day as the Windies chased 395 for victory.
To have extended the opening test to 5 days seemed an achievement in and of itself for this depleted West Indies side. Ian Bishop had referred to them as heroes for just going on tour. Imagine now. Nkrumah Bonner and Kyle Mayers had started day 5 with the Caribbean side 110 for 3, 285 runs away from an improbable victory. And the first hour was filled with scary moments. Kyle Mayers reached his maiden test 50 with a fortuitous edge.
Shot for Kyle Mayers, his first in test matches, dropping short.
At the other end, Bonner too had his stroke of luck.
Taken. Hawkeye.
But once the first hour had been negotiated, both batsmen played with more confidence and assurance and reached lunch with the Windies 197 for 3, 198 runs away. After the break, Bonner got to his half-century and Mayers reached his ton.
Uppish, streaky, but good enough. 100 on debut for the man from Barbados.
By the end of the second session, the partnership had blossomed to 207, the score to 266 for 3. Now with 129 to get in a minimum 33 overs and all of 7 wickets in hand, a West Indies victory didn't seem out of the equation. But Bonner lasted only 1 over into the final session, and Blackwood's rush of blood proved his downfall. And now it was easy to see how a familiar collapse could undo all the great work. But Bangladesh did themselves no favours as Mushikur Rahim failed to hold a difficult chance off Mayers. And so, he made them pay. First, bringing up his double century.
Childhood dreams for Kyle Rico Mayers. Only the 6th player to score double 100 in tests on debut.
And then after hitting 24s and 7 sixes from 310 deliveries in 415 minutes at the crease, the Barbadian fittingly struck the winning run to complete a famous victory with one of the great debut innings of all time. Hopefully, we won't have to try and remember this name.
New heroes have emerged from the ashes of a team destined.
Yeah, heroic stuff. Now, Sunday's win created a few milestone moments for West Indies cricket. Let's have a look. Several records on Sunday, well, coming out of that test. 5th highest chase in test history, that's 395 for 7 achieved by the Windies boys. Highest ever chase on the Asian well, in Asia, yeah, whether you want to qualify it or not. In Asia, highest ever run chase. 2nd highest partnership by 2 debutants in a 4th innings, 216. And Kyle Mayers is the 6th player to score a test double in the 4th innings. Not done yet. 210 by Kyle Mayers is the highest score by a debutant in the 4th innings of a test, yes. And a 53% contribution by Mayers in the 4th innings. That's the 3rd highest by any batsman in wins chasing 300 or more. Gordon Greenidge, that's Cuthbert Gordon Greenidge and Mark Butcher, the only other men to have contributed a greater percentage than Mayers, 53%. Now, this is a graphical representation of the highest successful chases in Asia. At the bottom, Pakistan's 382 for 3 against Sri Lanka in Pallekele. And of course, the top of the pile, the Windies, for that win in Bangladesh on Sunday. Highest successful chases in tests. Where does it rank? It comes in at number 5. 404, 406, 414, and that famous 418 for 7 at St. John's in Antigua in 2003. The only marks better than that essayed by these West Indies boys on Sunday. Now, let's hear from the Windies hero, 28-year-old Barbadian Kyle Mayers, as he reflects on the game with his captain, Craig Brathwaite.
It felt great. You know, my highest score ever. Always wanted to score a double. And it's quite funny because we had a team meeting and we were speaking about our personal goals and what we had achieved and what we did to get there and things we do well and things we didn't do well and what's not. And I spoke on batting and coming back the next day, always getting out. And I sport this particular game where I played in Barbados, my club, Carlton, where I scored 175. And I told the group that I was so eager to come back the next day. I didn't even sleep. And then I went and I got 2 balls and I had no score to the 175. So scoring this double means a lot to me. I think this is the longest time I've been ever batted. So that in itself shows that I put my all into it. The hard work that I've been doing is no paying off, and I can only give thanks and hope to continue to do well and become a student of the game. Just keep learning each day.
You can call him Kyle Mears, history maker. Well, the head coach, Phil Simmons, he spoke about the significance of the win.
I think it's a huge thing for West Indies, for West Indies cricket, for West Indian people on the whole. In a time like this, for us to win a game like that, we have lifted so many West Indians all around the world, and given them a real light in some dark times in some of the islands. We've had so much cases in some of the islands recently. So, I think the way how we prepared has given me a lot of joy, and then to see that it's come true, it's been put into action on the field. It's been great.
I think this is the Windies' first test since the death of the Sandals Supremo, Gordon Butch Stewart. If this is a present for the support of Sandals to West Indies cricket over the years, a very good one, posthumously, of course, to the late hotelier. Well, let's welcome Fazeer Mohammed as we continue to contextualize this West Indies victory over Bangladesh. Fazeer, the superlatives are flowing for what the men managed to achieve in Chattogram. Kyle Mears being lauded around the region as a hero in this moment. Are the West Indies good value for all the good things that have been said about them and are being said about them?
I think they are. One of the key points when you talk about Test cricket over 5 days, 2 innings, different teams, different players, there are so many variables. You can spend a lot of time dissecting. You could automatically say cynically, well, it was only against Bangladesh. But again, you contextualize it. Bangladesh at home have been far more competitive over the last 5 years. Their spinners, yes, Shakib Al Hassan was a non-factor because of his injury. But getting to 395, given all that the West Indies have had to endure, certainly for the last 12 months and indeed the last 25 years, it is remarkable. Let me also add, as you mentioned, the passing of Gordon Butch Stewart. Let me also mention that mere hours before that final day, we had the very tragic passing of Ezra Mosley. And may I offer my condolences to the entire cricket fraternity, the sporting fraternity, over the loss of such an outstanding cricketer. But just getting back to your point, George, I mean, as I said, we can find many different ways in which we want to put caveats on this performance. I don't think anybody who seriously would have expected the West Indies to have a chance of chasing 395, whether it was Kyle Mears or Nkrumah Bonner or anyone else. The fact that they were able to do it and pull it off so emphatically in the end, even with a little stumble towards the end, is really a remarkable effort.
All right, let's continue with the caveats then. Let's do that. And you know very well, as a host of serious programs, not just in sport, the role that we have to play to provoke a discussion. Sometimes our audience gets upset. Why are you carrying that line? But it's for the value of the conversation. I don't need to tell this to you. I'm just saying it to you so that others can hear. Context, Fazeer. The West Indies have played, 551 tests. Only England, Australia have played more in the history of Test cricket. India will soon pass the West Indies on that list for sure. And the West Indies have 176 Test wins to their name, Fazeer, at a win percentage of about 31.9. Bangladesh have played 120 tests. They've only played more tests than Afghanistan, Ireland, the ICC World 11. Yeah, those are the 3 teams that they've played more test matches than. They've only won 14 test matches. It's a woeful win percentage from a handful of test matches, relatively speaking. Why are we so cock-a-hoop about beating a team with that profile, with the West Indies' historical profile as it is?
I wouldn't say cock a hoop. Cock a hoop assumes that we are now elevated to a level of arrogance where we feel we're going to thrash Bangladesh in the next test match in Dhaka. You ask most people about what happened. They are rejoicing rejoicing in it, but saying, you never know what's going to happen with the next match because this is the West Indies you're talking about. So I wouldn't say cock a hoop, but I would say rejoicing. And the reason for rejoicing is not just about the victory, but yes, there is cause for rejoicing because 2 dispiriting losses in New Zealand, 2 dispiriting losses in England after winning the first test match in Southampton, but more for the fact that Bangladesh have been very competitive in their own conditions, whether it's England coming there, whether it's any other country coming there, they found it difficult. Yes, they lost to Afghanistan by a significant margin last year, so that's another caveat. And again, I appreciate and take into consideration all that will be said that, look, you people are getting carried away with this. It was just against Bangladesh. But again, I will put it to you, were any team in a situation of chasing 395, be it India, be it Australia, be it anybody, against Bangladesh on the last day, would the odds be stacked in favor of the opposition or Bangladesh? And given that we're talking about the West Indies and the West Indies track record of losing and losing badly away from home in the many years gone by and the not too distant past, I would think that it's not an exaggeration what you're hearing people saying about this particular result.
Bonner's manful contribution and Kyle Mears' heroics history will treat those accordingly. And already Kyle Mears is being lionized for his performance, no problem with that. Can we look, though, Fazeer, at the Windies' bowling in that second innings and their general cricket? Because we would admit that in the first innings for Bangladesh, the Windies fielders caught as if they were being asked to fish with their bare hands. Nothing would stick, almost tentative going to the ball. In the second innings, that bowling performance and how it, if you want to say, set up what Mears and company eventually achieved.
And indeed, when you saw the very first ball bowled in that test match, a long half volley from Kivar Marouch driven away. And there were a succession of boundaries to start this test match. You wondered, well, why should we even bother to watch this? And then we saw a bit of fight coming into it. The West Indies actually saved the follow-on. And again, just to give you a measure of this situation, many people were actually delighted that the West Indies saved the follow-on. There was no talk of victory anywhere close to that. The bowlers got into it. They put in the effort. And that is why I admire the work of the likes of Kivar Marouch and Shannon Gabriel. Granted, they aren't always as consistent as we'd like them to be, or they should be with the experience that they have. But they really put in the effort. You've got Jomel Warrican finally getting another test opportunity. He's been spending more time out of the West Indies test team than in the test team. And therefore, they were able, at the end of it all, it was Bangladesh who declared. Again, let's not forget that. Bangladesh could have batted on. They could have wanted to make it as safe as possible, but they probably felt their last 2 wickets wouldn't have lasted particularly long. So again, there are a number of different issues along the way. But again, you're right, George. When we talk about not just Kyle Mears and Nkrumah Bonner with his support role, that's so very important. You can't score runs by yourself. In test match cricket or in first class cricket or any form of cricket where 2 people are batting. So yeah, the bowlers played their part. Everyone chipped in and made some important contributions. And even if you want to add luck to it with the reviews and half chances and so on, that's all part of the game, especially over 5 days.
Kyle Mears' 210 has made people look who weren't paying rapt attention to this test match, and of course many more who wouldn't have been paying attention to his career up to this point. Given what his potential was coming into this test, Fazeer, and what he delivered, was 210 in a test match, regardless of who the opposition was 210 in this man's potential at 28 years old?
Absolutely not. I would say probably 50 wasn't in his potential in a test innings. But again, you're talking about someone who rose to the challenge. He scored 40 in the first innings, looked very assured, very confident, very much someone who believed in his own ability. And then when the second innings came around, he just continued in that vein, never looked back. Yes, he got some half chances along the way, a few edges here and there, but who doesn't have those half chances in an innings as long as 210? What was most admirable was his determination to carry it through right to the very end. He didn't give it away, as you talked about that 175 in a domestic game for Carlton. He didn't give it away. He just carried through. He carried on, playing positively, sensing the moment, aggression when it was needed, really deciding to go over the top when it was required. Most impressive as well. And I would like to see these young men stick to their word. He talked about becoming a student of the game. If he is a student of the game, he will know that scoring 100 on Test debut for the West Indies is a poison chalice.
Yes.
Because let's look at the players, the last few who did it. And I suspect, George, you would know this already. You've got Kirk Edwards,
yes,
after scoring a Test 100 in Dominica against India, nowhere to be seen. Adrian Barrett against Australia in Brisbane, nowhere to be seen. Dwayne Smith, likewise. Basil Williams, likewise. Leonard Bachan, who remembers he scored a Test 100 on debut. You have to go all the way back to Gordon Greenidge in 1974 for someone who built on that tremendous start. So he's got to be a student of the game and recognize that this is a fantastic effort, but just one effort.
Finally, Fazeer, in the short time we have left, you can't coach belief. You can't coach self-confidence. What kind of belief? How much the confidence zenith would have been, the mercury in the confidence thermometer would have been lifted by this performance. And I ask you that to say, what do you expect the frame of mind is that these Windies boys are going into that second test with?
Well, the mercury might be high, but Phil Simmons, the pragmatic individual that he is, will remind them that the next test match, like an innings, starts at 0, naught for naught. Remember, you start all over again. And they've got to come off that high very, very quickly, or we could all find ourselves cursing the West Indies team in a week's time.
Excellent. Good stuff, Fazeer Mohammed. Thank you as usual. All the best.
Take care.
Fazeer Mohammed there. All right, so I go to my panel now. I have an ex-first-class cricketer in studio with me and an ex-top-class footballer via Zoom, but a man who has cricket in his blood because he's Trinidad. We're all Caribbean people, and we have to love cricket, and we love to love cricket. Let me start with you, Wayne Lewis. You spoke of your emotions at the top of the show, but beyond that, though, this West Indies victory and the role played by the individual heroes who made it happen.
Fantastic, as I said, I feel so much a part of it because I was so much a part of the discussions and preparations for this series. And when some of the guys decided that they weren't going to go, I've always been pragmatic, as you said, in terms of, I was happy for the youngsters going, and I was hoping that they would take full advantage of it. I just want to say one thing, though, just bring myself in a little bit. I'm a little sorry for Myers. I'll tell you why. My first schoolboy match ever, the late Reggie Scarlett, the former West Indies off-spinner, he took an interest in me at the time. And when I was playing my first game in schoolboy cricket, I made naught. And he came down to watch the game, and I'd already got out and so on, and he asked me what did I do. I said I made naught. I was so disappointed. And he says, don't worry about it. It's the best place to start because you can only go up from there, one direction.
Yes.
For this guy to score a double century on debut, the pressure is going to be so much on him for him to deliver. But he seemed to be a very collected guy, a very easygoing, soft-spoken type of person, and he's not getting too ahead of himself. And I'm also hoping that he'll move forward and grow from strength to strength because I think this opportunity is fantastic. And I dare say that I think we might be looking at a new middle order batting for Cricket West Indies. Yeah, quickly from you, Brent, we're up on the break. Your reaction to this tremendous test win?
Yeah, I know at the top of the show I sounded a bit sarcastic in my bellowing of saying that West Indies won a game, but every time you talk about West Indies cricket, you start thinking about consistency and you start thinking about whether or not they can sustain this sort of performance. But at the end of the day, as Wayne rightfully said, it seems to be a new batch of players that have seemingly a new sort of fight in them, and I hope that they can continue this. I think that's the key for me. I would love to see them continue, especially, of course, with the next test coming up, that sort of performances. Even if they don't win, gentlemen, I'd be happy if they maintain the same fighting spirit and the same characteristic they showed in this win.
1-0 to the West Indies, guaranteeing that they can't lose the series. More on the SportsMax Zone after this break.